Welcome to The Passion Pod with your host, Chris Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the feature presentation.
Season 6, Episode 3.
Welcome back, friends. Today we're hanging out in Hollywood, California with a singer-songwriter. He first popped off when he was on the 10th season of American Idol and has been performing and making music ever since. Welcome to the show, Stefano Langone.
Yeah.
Dude, I figured I was going to mess it up
It's
right
all
away.
good. No, you didn't. You actually got it.
Well, wonderful.
Cool. I'll make it easy for you. Just Stefano.
All right,
Just
perfect.
Stefano. It's easy. And I tell people it's funny because, 3 syllables, for most people, if the name's 3-4 syllables, it gets a little tricky. It's hard for people to, like, if I'm like out at like playing basketball or if I'm golfing or something, I would get paired up with people we don't know. I just tell people Fano. I'm like, because my cousins and growing up, people would just call me Fano. And so when I'm, meet other people, I'm like, it's Fano, like Bono with an F, and people are like, oh, okay, cool, that's easy. So random.
Yeah, no, perfect. So who are you and what are you passionate about?
Who am I? It's such a funny question. I had just recently gone through something that was incredibly life-altering and changing. I'm a singer, songwriter. That is what I do. Here in LA, I've been here for 10 years. But I lost my voice. My voice blew out in November 19th. I was doing a gig for Mercury Insurance. And I was in Florida at the time with family. I was playing on the keys and just going in, and my voice gave out. And I knew it right away. It was my voice, it blew in a way that I'd never done before. And it blew in a way that after I was done singing, my voice was different. My talking voice was different. And I was really freaked out. And so we got home early December from the trip, and I was like, it hasn't changed. I'm on vocal rest. I'm not really talking very much. And the first week of December, I decide to go see a specialist. And I go in there, and they tell me, hey, you have a polyp on your vocal folds. And so what they do, it's a non-cancerous, it's like a cyst or like a, for most cases, they go away. And so the doctor was like, listen, how about you come back in 6 to 8 weeks and we'll see if it's gone away and we'll go from there. But you can't talk. And so I had been on vocal rest for the last, week and a half or so. And so he said, you can't talk. And that means that you can't talk. You can't speak. You can't say yeah. You can't say anything. You can't use your voice, period. And so I had to get an app, a speaking app, and it would talk for me. I have to text it all out. It was pretty crazy. During the holidays, during December, which in an Italian household is a great thing because you can't, you can't clap back. You can't react to anything. It was an incredibly, eye-opening experience to be around your family during the holidays and not be able to speak, good and bad. But so I didn't speak all of December. And in January, I came back, and it was about halfway through January. So it was almost the 5-week mark, going on 6. And I was like, you know what? I talked a little, like I just said a sentence or two, and I could feel it still. And I was like, it hasn't changed. I know it's not going to change. My body is telling me this is a serious thing. And so I go back to the doctor. I'm like, I can't wait 2 months. I can't do it. I'm just like, I'm freaking out. Okay. So I go to see the doctor, and they're like, oh yeah, this is a lifer. This is if we don't take this out, your voice is going to sound like this for the rest of your life. And so I go and we schedule a surgery. Literally 3 weeks later, it was like I'm like, I need to get in now. So January 27th, I go in, and when they did the surgery, it's not invasive, but they go through your throat, and it's in your neck. And so they go and they took the polyp out, and the polyp actually had a blood vessel. So it was thriving. It was just like enjoying its life. And again, like I'm not talking. So that was on no talk at all. And it's just like sitting there, just enjoying life. So it was a pretty incredible experience. After that, I couldn't talk again for another 8 weeks. So all in all, about three months and some change, I could not speak. And so during that experience, you realize, especially in a city like Hollywood, where we are, who are you? Well, I'm a singer. Okay. You recognize you're a lot more than just that. And I think the beauty in what you're doing in this podcast, you want to talk about what inspires you, and you want to talk about your creativity, and you want to talk about, who you are and why you do what you do. I think when you really sit and during the toughest times, during the most suffering times sometimes, you really find out who you are. And you get the reasons, you find the reasons on why you do the things that you do and why you love to do the things that you do and how much they mean to you. And during this experience, not only do you recognize like, hey, I love to talk to people. I love to share my story. I love to, bullshit and talk and enjoy. And I love music and I love singing and I love sharing that gift that I've been given. And when things go wrong, it's usually when things go right.
I think so. That's when you discover a lot about yourself. And I love what you're talking about there, where you're like, look, I'm a singer. But really, that's what it comes down to is what ultimately do you want? Right? And you want to be able to perform to make people happy doing something that you enjoy, and singing is the medium, and that's how it works for you, right? For me, with like my show, the reason it really evolved is because I opened my skateboard shop because I wanted it to be this like community hub where I was like this big brother type person to these kids that I like just wanted to help be a good influence in, that's like kind of what I do. So I'm all the time talking to kids like, you need to do this or help you with this to hopefully watch them succeed, right? And through the show, really, that's really the goal, right? Is instead of now having one-on-one conversations all the time where nobody's listening to help this one person, ideally, by helping people tell their stories, I'm helping hundreds of people or thousands of people or tens of thousands eventually maybe, or whatever. But that's really the goal, right? And the show is just kind of the medium. This is just how I'm helping people find the things that they want to do and helping them to actually pursue those things.
Amen.
So how can people best follow you, hear your work, and get in contact if they wanted to? I'm
on Instagram, Spotify, Facebook, Stefano Music, Stefano Music. And those are kind of my bigger platforms. But I'm on Twitter just as Stefano, Stefano. And what you're saying as far as like, it's basically giving, where you find something that you're good at and you could ultimately give, and it becomes more when you recognize, in those silent moments, and you recognize, the truth, the realness of why we're here. You love to do what you do because you love to give it away and impact, and that's what it's all about, and so this whole experience for me, the last few months, I've only been talking now for 2 months. We're in May now, so I started speaking in March, and then I started singing about halfway through March, and I sang the national anthem last weekend at the LA Kings game, which was amazing. It was such a great, Staples Center, such a great, like, I'm going to go do this. Like, my first gig, I'm going to sing in the Staples Center,
Yeah.
No one was there, but, that's beside the point. I'm in Staples Center, So, pretty great. And, at the end of the day, it was a perfect storm. All this, not being able to talk, having to go deep. People go on week retreats and not talking, and it changes their lives. I went 3 months and had to go places in my life and in my, mind that I have never gone before, memories and trauma and shit that you don't think about, you put away. It's crazy. And then when you get over the suffering part and you surrender and you see, you essentially give in to the moment, and you recognize the power in that, and you recognize what it's all about and the moment. And that is true enlightenment. consciousness. And that's what this experience gave me. If you talking about what we can give to people, anybody that I talk to, it's, surrendering to the moment and being in the moment and, letting life give to you.
Think about, that's the crazy part is anytime you put yourself in a different state, right? Like you're saying, taking a retreat, whether it's not talking or whether it's traveling to a different country or changing your diet or your sleeping habits or whatever, you put yourself in a different state, you see the world slightly differently, right? That's when all of a sudden you become a more well-rounded human because you're not just in your same mode of doing the same thing all the time. And what a crazy contrast, right? From traveling and performing all the time, quarantine hits, and now you can't even talk, let alone sing and entertain people. Yeah. And I think it gives you maybe I'm wrong here, but I feel like it must have given you a little bit of a different appreciation for like what you did have, right? And you've gone through like a lot of stuff though.
100%.
Which obviously we'll get to.
But what, to your point, the duality of life, we get locked into, yes, you were right on all that stuff. I was on tour with Babyface. I'm enjoying, I'm making good money. And I found a way during quarantine. It wasn't until the end of quarantine. I actually had a great quarantine. Quarantine worked out. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was able to perform and connect with fans, and I enjoyed it. I got to spend time with my wife that I hadn't really got to spend, and you even get that whole experience, being locked in the house and, trying to figure out the way of each other in a different way, just being stuck in a house together, and getting over that hump and all these amazing things. I think we get locked into, as just human beings, get locked into what is good and what is bad. And we allow that to give us an identity for that moment. Oh, that was bad, so I'm in a bad mood because that was bad, and now I'm, my whole aura is now bad. I think that's the thing that we got to disconnect from. And I had to disconnect from my situation of when I did lose my voice, of just thinking the world is ending and this is the end of my life and I don't know if I'm ever be. All that is just, it's not existent. And once I took myself out of all that and just recognized the moment and just started playing the piano, finding different ways to connect to myself, meditating, doing other that could bring me closer to myself and bring me closer to the music, taking advantage of all that time instead of letting the time take advantage of me and my mind thinking, oh, everything's fun. And like people just getting in their head, and then it's such a crazy cycle that so many people, everybody, I'm not like, I still go through it. But to learn it and to recognize it and to observe that in yourself, that is the key to life. And to, I still am working on it every single day, but at least I know, it's that cognizance and knowing that it's there. And knowledge is responsibility. You know what I'm saying? That if you touch the burner, it's going to burn your hand. So you are responsible to not do that, or you're going to burn your hand off. It's just like, it's easy shit. It's just going deeper and finding that thing within you. It's like, I know I'm going to be a better singer if I do A, B, C, D, E, and F. Okay, and so once I was able to start singing, I was doing A, B, C, D, and F, E, and F, and now my voice is back, better than ever. And I recognized that, stayed in the moment, and now I'm able to give what I can give.
Yeah, well, and like I said, whenever you pull yourself in a different situation, you can kind of work on different things. And that's one thing that quarantine kind of, provided everybody, was this like weird opportunity. You could think of it as like a loss, but it didn't have to be a loss. And for people who, honestly, successful people, maybe they sat around for a couple of weeks, like, I don't know what the fuck's going on, right? But most people who are going to be successful at the end, they can look at how they spent that time because it was a different opportunity they didn't have before. You never had that time to just sit and work on music or whatever, or for you to be able to let your vocal cords actually like heal from all these years of abuse. You never had that opportunity to, before. And a lot of people discovered different things that they were into or were able to. I personally like worked on my house a bunch, and I put a ton of time into artwork and started painting a lot. You know what I mean? It's when you like have that opportunity, it's if you take advantage of that opportunity rather than just looking at it as like a huge issue.
Amen.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So taking it back a little bit, you're from Washington, right?
Yeah.
Initially, you're from Washington?
Grew up in Seattle. My family's from the Bay Area. Bunch of loud, crazy Italians.
Well, but you came from music, right? Was it your dad was a musician?
My dad and his dad. His dad owned the first music shop in East San Jose in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Maybe even the 70s, Langone's Music. and they were right across the street from the high school, and that's where all the kids hung out. And like my grandfather would give accordion lessons upstairs. My grandmother would run the music store downstairs, and they had all the newest, freshest records, Sinatra, everybody was coming through there to get the new records. So that's kind of where it started. My dad, grew up in that, in that thing. And where we are from in Italy, Treccarico, it's outside of Calabria. It's on the east side. It's like 100 miles inland from the ocean. We're in the boot. We're in the boot of Italy. People in the United States, everybody's like, oh, you must be Sicilian. That's the only thing anybody knows. No, we're in the boot. All right. Sicily is this island. Okay. No, I love Sicilians. They're great. Anyway. So, but no, so from the town that we're in, music's very, very prevalent there. And so when my family came here to the United States, they brought that culture with them. They brought the music with them. And it's instilled in me. My dad plays every instrument. He's a genius. I play a lot of his music. And it was passed down to me. And so I play the piano, I produce and write and sing and do all the stuff. So it wasn't much of a choice. It was just, who am I? That's a lineage part of me that I don't want to break. That's something that's just instilled in me and is supposed to be there.
Right. So, through high school, you must have been singing obviously all the time, right?
Oh, yeah.
So then because from what I kind of saw reading a little bit about you, you had a college scholarship, right? For music?
Yeah, for music.
Right. And then a bunch of stuff kind of happened to you. But when did you kind of first get a little bit of traction in music? Was it while you were still in college?
Yeah. It's so crazy because in hindsight, you think, man, just take it. If I could have just gone back and just told, the little kid, yo, just take your time, bro. Just relax. I had just got into the music scene. I was going to school. I was a student, but I was writing with a couple rappers, local rappers. I was in the same studios as Macklemore. This is 10 years ago though. Okay. So this is way before he had his thing and whatever. But we were all in the same kind of area. I was in Bellevue, Seattle. If you're from around there, you know what it is. I'm from Kent. I grew up in Kent, but we were in a really cool spot where there was a lot of really cool underground music. There's this music scene that was really cool, and I literally just started getting into it, and I was getting a name for myself. I was really making some. I had a couple open mics that I killed, and people were putting it on YouTube. People were seeing it on YouTube, and then I started doing a little YouTube thing, and I was getting a lot of great feedback. And but actually, what happened was I got a DUI. I got a f***ing DUI. A year after I got in a really bad accident. And it was really traumatic. The accident was just wow, I'm alive, I'm here. And then I got a DUI, and it was I got to get my life together. You know what I'm saying? And during all this time, all this good shit happening, I get the DUI, and I feel so stupid because I got hit by a drunk driver. So I'm what the f-? And so I'm I got to get the f- out of here. So literally a week after I got this, it was a negligent driving. It ended up being good lawyers. I had a friend that was yo, they're having American Idol auditions in San Francisco. You got to check this out. And I was okay. I don't really have the money to do that. Go all the way to San Francisco. And literally that night, I'm not even joking. It was so crazy. That night, he asked me to do this. My Auntie Tina, who lived in San Francisco, who was literally down the block from where the downtown auditions were held at the park, at the baseball park there, right there. She calls me. She goes, "When are you going to come visit me?" And I was okay, this is weird. So then I hit up the dude. I'm listen, if you pay for gas, I'll drive. And he's let's do it. So we ended up going there. We auditioned. And I I get through. He didn't ultimately make it, but and just to clarify, because I'm saying this and this is always going to be out there, I was the DUI, okay, because this was a really traumatic thing for me. When I got in the accident, I survived. And it was a terrible accident. But people were like, yeah, it changed your life. And then I did Idol, and that was like, oh, this changed his life. That really wasn't the moment. The real moment was when I got the DUI. The real moment was when I f***ed up. The accident made me be like, I appreciate life. I'm here. It was really, it was a weird time. I was 20 years old. I go through experience. I'm here. I'm still alive. I'm ready to go. And I loved life. That didn't change. Did it make me think oh, I'm going to go hard as and just go conquer the world? No. I got down. I was down and out and going through serious PTSD a year later from the accident, and I was drinking and I was out, and the night that I actually got pulled over, I blew as 0.088. 0.08 is the limit. 0.088 is what I blew, which was, okay, I wasn't drunk, but I was speeding and I didn't use my blinker. So they pulled me over and he asked me, hey, are you drinking? And I was 21. I'm like, yeah, I was drinking, but I didn't drink that much. So of course, red flags, whatever, doesn't matter. What matters is that projected me to do Idol. That was the moment, because I was like, I'm game. Whatever comes my way, I'm going to do it. Any stage that asks me, I'm going to go for it. I need to get out of here. I need to get out of here, and I need to go somewhere. And I need to be and amount to who and where I know I should be. And so that was a real catalyst, man. I don't tell a lot of people that. I've just opened that Pandora's box very recently, because that's the truth. And most people just know me as the guy that got hit by the drunk driver. And then because they build this sob story and they build this persona for you. And so I lived with that for a long time. And it's a beautiful story, but it's not the full story. The full story is a year after I got hit by a drunk driver, I myself got behind the wheel under the influence, got in trouble, and then figured my shit out. And that's the truth.
It took the wake-up call. People like you said, they portray it as if this terrible thing happened to you, which it did, right? You had to relearn to walk and all that.
Yeah.
But the sad part is that at that age, it didn't teach you the lesson that it needed to teach you. And it was the trouble that taught you that lesson.
Well,
but at least you learned it, right?
My thing would be, it taught me lessons.
Sure.
It just didn't teach me the other lessons, the lessons that I needed to still apparently figure out,
right.
And again, it's not... talk about not being good or bad. The DUI ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me. It was, and surviving the crash, the greatest thing that happened out of that situation was I survived.
Right.
The greatest situation that happened out of the DUI was I figured my out. That's
right.
A whole nother thing. It's a whole nother dynamic. And that's the beauty of life, because this is most of the time, 99.9% of the time, this is ugly. And it's frustrating and it's dark, and you get in places that, you have to find a way to see the light. And then once you're able to see the light, suffering, you have to suffer. But once you can suffer enough, you end up seeing the light. And that is when you get the key. And when you get the key, then you could start the ignition, and it's time to go. And that's a life decision. Is it time to go? And you got to say, yeah, it's time to go. Let's go get this. And that's the beauty of this whole thing. You know what I'm saying? Taking advantage of your life and just going for it. And yeah, could I have back then said, dude, just take your time. You didn't need Idol, because I didn't. I could not have done Idol, and maybe I would even be in a different place today. And it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter, but it's fun to think about. But I did Idol, and it got me out of there, and I did it, and I'm here in LA. I'm still doing what I love to do. I was on tour with Babyface. I'm going to go back on tour with him. He just asked me recently. I'm writing in the studio. I'm going to put out a song next month. I'm doing shit. And that's what I'm supposed to be doing, and doing this podcast with you.
Dude, I'm so glad that your voice is back and not over. I'm so glad that that's not your body of work isn't totally toast and done, and that was all we have to look at. There's all this new stuff coming. Yeah. So to get back, Idol was obviously on TV, so everyone can see what happened with Idol. I want to know more about what happens after Idol, right? So you have this DUI where all of a sudden you're a little bit woken up to okay, I got to pursue this thing. I got to do the things that I want to do, right? If I want this outcome, I got to actually get to work. So then you go to San Francisco and you end up getting on Idol. All of a sudden, boom, your face is everywhere, right? Because like Idol, especially at that time, was huge. Now it's like it's still big, but it was much bigger at that point in time, right?
It was ridiculous.
Right. And then right after, all of a sudden, you get invited to be on every TV show, right?
Yeah.
You're on like Good Morning America and all that type of stuff, right?
Yeah.
You're still only, what, 21?
I was 22.
Super young, right?
Yeah.
Was that success good or bad? I mean, the coverage, right? Like being in front of people is good to expose your music.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I just got done talking about it's not good or bad, but the reality is, I'll put it like this. When you are that young and you get, it's not about the age, it's about the recognition after what? So I'm getting all this recognition, I'm getting all this quote unquote fame. For what? What did I do? I sang some covers on a TV show. Did I have any of my songs out? Did I impact with, did I say and give and do what my purpose was? And, did I really change anything? Was I really a great person and somebody to look up to? And, for career-wise, let's just look at a career. What the hell did I do in the music industry that permitted me and gave people the audacity to put me on a pedestal and have me on their TV shows and say da-da-da-da-da-da. And all that shit goes right as a kid. It didn't go to my head, but it made me feel a sense of security that is complete BS. And that comfortability and that, well, I'm good now for this is it. Like I made it. And Jesus, that couldn't be the furthest thing from the truth. Because I didn't do Idol to be on American Idol. I didn't do Idol to be like, yeah, I'm going to be an American Idol and that's my goal. I did that shit to get close to Jimmy Iovine, to get in the music industry. You can look at all my interviews. I was music industry fanatic. I want to be in the music industry. I want to work with the best. I want to have records out. I want to be on Billboard. I want to be, I want to go and I want to travel and tour and people sing my songs at the shows. Like that's what I wanted. And I didn't work hard enough. All that stuff. I wasn't in the studios. I was doing interviews and flying around and doing so much that I was just like, what was I doing? And I got signed, which was awesome. But after a year of this LA identity and this idol world and this bubble, I had this perception, this perspective on what this life was. So going into an opportunity like getting signed, being the only one or one of two to get signed outside of the whole idol bubble, I got signed on my own. I got another deal from a record label, gave me the reins to go and do dope shit. And my whole cha-cha was like based on Idol and that whole lie. And so I was kind of f***ed before the party even started, And, it's funny to look back now and think, what the hell was I doing? And, and then it's hilarious to think, and this is the absolute truth, I didn't get dropped from the label. I asked that label to drop me. I asked Hollywood Records to drop me. That's how delusional I was. Literally. I thought, you know what? Because they shelved the record of mine that I spent a year and a half working on. Okay? And I say that like that because that's not that long. I was 23, going on 24. And I'm like, I had this whole record and I felt like I was a victim. I'm like, well, I have all this music and they like this music and I've been touring on the road, different radio stations. And I had done 3 tours around the nation. And I'm like, they love the music. Like, why aren't we doing this? And the label was like, nah, we're not going to do that right now. They had Selena Gomez and Demi Lovato and Tinashe, like all their first records or their last records. It was like the last. So that was all their, rightfully so. They did something. They had music. They were real celebrities. Like, I was like, come on, man. Like, what's up with this? Like, you can't get my in there, you know? And so I had the audacity to tell the head of the label, Ken Bunt, who I think he's still the president of the label. I was in his office. And he told me, listen, like, it's just not going to happen this year. And I was just like, well, would you guys drop me? And he's like, we don't want to do that, but if that's what you want to do. And I said, yeah, I think that's the right thing. And they dropped me. And I was thinking, I'll get a deal. I'll start, shopping around. That was a whole lie also, because my managers, my agents, my everything except my lawyer was all American Idol stemmed from.
Right.
So once they saw that, okay, Idol is done, he's not on a label, we ain't gonna do shit. We don't gotta do nothing. And so that's exactly what happened. They didn't do anything. And I hadn't done anything for them to do something. And so I was kind of out of luck. And there were no takers, and so that was it. And then I had to figure out how to survive out here.
Well, yeah, you were a little too big for your britches, right? Because you come out based on the skill of singing alone, but you're a singer-songwriter, right? You didn't prove yourself as a songwriter yet.
Exactly.
All you did was sing, which is great that you're talented in that realm, but it takes a lot more than that, right?
Way lot more.
So after you get that, I'm sure you felt slightly humiliated, right? When all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, I just threw this away based on like thinking that.
Yeah, I don't think I felt that way till a couple years down the road, but still. Nevertheless,
So then what happened then? You basically like you dropped everything, right? And now you're like, okay, well, American Idol spotlight's gone. The skill's there, obviously. You created this record, so like you've been growing as a musician, so that's there. But people aren't just holding their hands out to help anymore.
No.
So then what happens? How do you continue to go on?
Oh, wow. That's a loaded question. Well, first of all, I ran out of money. Okay, we're in one of the most expensive cities in the world. I ran out of money, and I'm thinking, what am I gonna do? And so the only thing I knew how to do was my voice. So first thing was I started giving vocal lessons. I started networking around. Hey, I can give some vocal lessons. So I started giving vocal lessons. And that was cool, but I wasn't really making much money. I started out like $60 an hour. Like I didn't know. From an American Idol, who wasn't that long. I mean, it wasn't that long. I think now, and I'm good at like marketing and knowing how to do it. I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? I could have charged more back then than now. But it was like $60 an hour. I had like 4 or 5 students, and they would come, and that's like how I'd make my money to eat. And then so I knew a lot of people in the scene from just going out, because I used to be a party animal. I was a party animal. I would travel. I'd go. This is like before like Instagram was kind of new, I wasn't like ham sandwich on all that shit yet, but I was out and about all over. And so doing that, I met a lot of the guys in the live music scene. And so it got to the point where I'm like, yo, I need to start gigging. Like I need to gig, I need to make money. So I would start doing these $200 gigs 3 times a week, sometimes more, and then getting like odd jobs here and there. That with the lessons, and I started just becoming a hustler and going into sessions when I could and writing for people, charging people to produce music. That was my way. I had to find a way, and that was a really cool time, like between 2014 and I'd say all the way up to 2017, where I was just like hustling. Like those were the real hustle years of my LA experience. And then I was just hustling and hustling. By 2017, I hustled enough to snag a gig with Pepsi and Caesar's Palace. And like the gigs just got better and better and better, because I was, I'll dust some off my shoulder and just say like I was pretty good at live performance. I could sing live. I sound as good or better than how I in a studio recording. Like. And I can put a vibe out. That's I love going out and setting the tone for people. And the tone is just enjoying and being in the moment and having fun and letting loose. And that is my shit. And I have a scotch on top of that. I have my fedora on and my suit, and I'm on a whole nother vibe. So it's pretty fun. And I was just getting bigger and better gigs. And, and then I finally snagged the gig with Babyface in 2018. And I've been on tour with him since. I mean, we were in the studio writing, and I finally started putting out some of my own songs recently. And so now we're just kind of working. That's it.
Do you think you have a lot better appreciation for where you got to now because it wasn't just like handed through this like kind of chaos of American Idol, but when you actually built it yourself from pretty close to nothing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You went right back down. I mean, no, people might have heard about you, but you went pretty much back down to the starting point 100%. And had to rebuild the whole thing.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. You have an appreciation, but you also have there's a realness to you, again, like, the suffering part, everyone suffers, everyone has their shit, man. And even all of the people's favorite performers and idols, and everybody got their shit. And these moments just make you real, and that ultimately is your strongest attribute, and when I can go on stage and fuck around and joke, and that realness couldn't have come when I got off American Idol and I was on whatever and went there and was writing music that was kind of me, but also what they wanted, and not knowing who I really was. That's not as real as going through the shit and going through the gutter and figuring out and pulling yourself back up, because that's literally life. And when you connect with that on a level that I did, and maybe even less than that, people feel that. And that's what it's about.
Yeah. I mean, you're a real person. You're more relatable, right? Because they see that, okay, well, you actually had to work hard and build something, and this is who you are. This isn't what somebody else wanted you to be that you're pretending to be because this is what they want. You know what I mean? You're not trying to fit in a mold. You're actually building yourself up to be yourself. I've been molded. Right, exactly.
Right, I've been molded, yeah.
So what's coming up? What's going to be the next things that are coming? Now that quarantine's ending, your voice is coming back. You said you're going back on tour. You got some new songs coming out. What can we look to see?
Yeah, so I am going to be releasing some songs, some new songs in the next couple of months. I'm really, really excited about. One is called Pangea. And if you know what Pangea is, it's even cooler, because Pangea was the first supercontinent when all the continents were one. We are Pangea, baby. So, that's going to come out. I got a song that I wrote for my wife for our wedding. It's going to come out on our anniversary, which is July 27th. So I got some new songs coming out, and I'm going to be going back on tour with Babyface in August. If people have seen the show, I'm featured in his show. I come out as El DeBarge for one part. I'm singing some of his biggest hits with him. I'm on stage dancing and hanging out and doing a damn thing. So it's a really cool experience, and I'm just excited to get back to it.
Dope, dude. I'm excited to watch it. Now that I follow you, I'm going to be watching all the different things that come out. We come to this point of the show every time. This is my favorite part of the show. When you do something that you're passionate about for a living, ideally, you have a lot of really cool experiences. You've had a lot, obviously, traveling around with Babyface and American Idol and whatever. What is one experience, one specific one that you can think of right now that you can share that you're really grateful for, but it only happened because you pursued music?
That's so crazy. So I had a opportunity where I had been performing, and somebody had saw one of my shows, and this was in 2017 or 2016. I can't, one of the two. Anyway, so this is another opportunity where just some random is like, yo, you'd be great for this. And, in the city, everybody could do something for you. But you kind of get locked into that idea. And then once you do, and you meet all these people and you realize most people are full of shit, you kind of just like, yeah, sure, whatever. But one of these opportunities actually was real. And I found myself in first class on my way to Belize, and by myself, and I brought a couple friends actually. But they had to sit and coach, I'm in first class, and I'll never forget, I was on my way there, and I had a couple friends with me, and I was thinking to myself, like, oh my gosh, like, I'm on my way to Belize, which I'm an ocean freak. Like, I love the ocean and the Caribbean, and just like I'm a fish. Like if I get anywhere near, I'm going to Miami in a couple of weeks. I'm a fish. I just want to be in the water. That's all I want to do.
Same.
So I'm on my way to Belize, and we get there, and the red carpet comes out, and I'm just thinking like, this is insane. And I ended up performing for the First Lady of Belize and her event, and for the next 4 or 5 days, staying at the most incredible resorts, staying on an island for a few days off of Belize. It's called Saint. It's so basic.
St. Thomas?
No, but it's something like that. I'll think of it in a minute. But the place was, it's out of a dream. And we go to the second biggest coral reef in the world, which is in Belize. We swim with sharks. All this incredible stuff and just amazing stuff, and just to sing a couple songs. And just thinking, wow, how did we get here? And those moments you just relish in, and when you do what you love and love what you do, good shit happens.
Always, dude. You got to manifest that destiny for you know what I mean? You got to put that out in the world. This is what I want to be able to achieve. This is what I want to bring people, and those things come back to you. Do you have any, obviously you had some mistakes in your life that you learned from, right? Because we all do. What's one mistake that you learned a lesson from that somebody listening could benefit from?
I think the main lesson that I learned just in this last, 5 months, the main lesson above it all is silence and understanding. I think we get in as humans, we just want to respond to everything. We want to respond to negativity. We want to respond to, first response. Always, it's always an instant thing. And what not talking made me do, it forced me to do, is be silent and to listen to myself for a second and to think before I could even think. And that, I think, above all, was such an incredible experience, because we think about our lives and we think about our reactions, and the reaction is always more important than the action itself, right? It's the reaction. Well, how did you respond? And I think when you go through times and you look back on maybe some times and you see, well, how did I react to those things? And you'll notice I didn't really react quite well to them. Moving forward, you have to find a way to be silent and be in the moment. Rest yourself and make decisions for yourself that will ultimately be, your true, hold integrity to who you are. And I think above all, that is the biggest thing. I read a few books, one being Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. It's highly recommended. He's a badass, but kind of put things in perspective of all the things that you can go through and still pull yourself and be the greatest that you can be. And then, books like The Four Agreements, and then books like, The Power of Now, in recognizing what enlightenment is, what consciousness is, and connecting to yourself, to who you are, to your essence. That's crazy. And when you do that, that is power. That is endless life and true divine enlightenment. And that's it. That's what it's all about. And so that's the lesson. The lesson is you don't have to respond. Be quiet, be silent with yourself. Silence is the loudest, in most situations. And so think.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.